Thank you for joining me. This is Kati Whitledge with the Beyond the Technique podcast. Another Thursday, we're together. Today, we're talking about the danger in making assumptions. You know the saying, when you make an assumption, you're making an ass out of you. An umption, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Well, we're going to really get into this because there is danger to this. It can cost you. Making assumptions costs you. What does it cost you? It costs you money, time, resources, and relationships. So let's dive in. Number one, assumptions can cost you financially. When you fill in the blanks, you often build the wrong thing, you solve the wrong problem, you solve the right problem, maybe the wrong way. In project environments, so thinking about a project you're working on, ineffective communication is a measurable risk multiplier. So there's a US report that there's $135 million at risk per $1 billion spent on projects. That is insane. Like, making assumptions is costing big companies big dollars. Effective communication correlates with better outcomes. So people who have high and effective communication, they don't make assumptions, they figure it out, ask great questions. We're going to get into that. See 80% of their projects meeting their original goals or their business's intent for the project. Whereas 52% of goals are achieved if assumptions are made and communication is either minimal or less effective. So assumptions feel fast, but you'll get the invoice later. If you make assumptions, it can cost you financially. Number two, assumptions related to people are often egocentric and we're usually wrong. There's two common traps. This shows up in leadership frequently because we're in a human to human relationship business. So, one common trap is false consensus. So, we overestimate how many people think like we do. And don't we see this show up when you're training a new hire? You forget they don't know all the things you know that are just like second nature. You kind of forget the basics sometimes. So when you're in a room with people that you work with all the time, you have this false sense that they think now the same way you think. So you end up skipping explaining yourself or the why behind things. You skip checking to make sure everybody's on the same page. You might even misread the room. You misread their silence as acceptance. This is a major risk and a breakdown in the efficiency and the buy-in from team members. So it's so important that we stay away from that trap of false consensus. The next trap is called illusion of transparency. So this is where we assume our intent, the tone we use, the emotion is obvious. Then we're shocked when people interpret things completely different. Okay, we see this show up all the time in text messages. And then we take it so the wrong way, and that maybe wasn't the way we should take it. We also deliver things in ways that maybe we didn't intend. So again, it's so important to pull and ask questions if somebody delivering something to you that you're not quite sure what they mean. But also when you are explaining or talking through something, explaining the why behind it. Always, always, always. What is the why behind the thing that you're discussing? And I often say, here's where my head is at with this, because I want to share that perspective so that when we go to talk through it and people bring up what their thoughts are, they already know, like, I'm coming at this from a collaborative place. I want everybody's feedback. I won't assume you all think like I do. You know, it's interesting. Part of our annual reviews is we ask everybody to tell us their top love languages. And one of the new ones, so typically there's been five. There's time, touch, positive affirmations, gifts, acts of service. And then there's this sense of feeling known. To really be fully known by others that you're working with or in a relationship with. So that feels so good. But how many of you are in a long lasting relationship or have been married many years and you still run into things where your significant other does not get what you're saying? They are not picking up what you're putting down. And you have to backstep and break it down and explain, here's what I meant. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's what I need. Here's what I want. I mean, this happens in the closest relationships that you could have. So just because you're close doesn't mean you should assume that you're on the same page. So add this problem that 3 in 4 Americans overestimated, and this was a very large US study. About 3 in 4 Americans overestimated their ability to distinguish real versus false news headlines. This is an example of just classic assumptions. Or I should say, being overly confident. We don't think we can be bamboozled because we can't tell the difference. Is this real news? Is this fake news? I mean, it's very challenging sometimes. This is a piece of the puzzle that fuels bad assumptions. So whether you're close to somebody or inundated with the same media outlet over and over, you may not have the full story. And it's important that you go discover that. When you say the words, this is a great, great piece of advice, I might be wrong. So let me ask, instead of assuming, when you come at that, let's say somebody shares something, you're like, well, I might be wrong about this, but I assume XYZ. It softens the conversation immediately, where you're not coming at somebody, making assumptions, pointing out, and then they'll be like, no, that's not at all what I meant. I've done that many times with our team members. And they'll be like, actually, no, that's not where we're going with this or what we were thinking. And then I look like an a-hole again, which is the whole point, right? Like, if you make an assumption, you're making an ass out of yourself at the end of the day. So saying, you know what, I might be wrong. Here's what I'm assuming. Am I totally off base? Where are we at? Number 3, assumptions are the fastest way to break trust on teams. This is the human part. It is dangerous to make assumptions because it's the fastest way to break trust. Trust erodes, it breaks down when people feel like you didn't listen, you didn't clarify, or you didn't care or come off like you seemed to care because maybe you assumed. You summarized it for yourself in your own mind. I've also been guilty of that. And especially with my spouse. Well, I assumed you meant this. Well, no, that's not what I meant. You know, he's very much more detail oriented than I am. And so never assume, be an active listener, ask clarifying questions, and show that you really care. There's this clarity loop, and it's very simple, but it's powerful. So when you're working on a project with your team, you first and foremost define, what does it mean to win? When this is done, what does that mean? And what does it mean to win? Define the terms. If you're saying things like, okay, let's get this done ASAP. Let's hurry up and get this done, or this is top priority. Okay, define what that means and why. Which part? Is it the first part of the project we're getting done ASAP? Is it the whole entire thing? Like, that takes great communication. And as a leader, this is a skill set to continuously work on. Great communication isn't just speaking to people, sending them message. I mean, it's like, what you say is one thing, what they understand or what you are all on the same page about is a totally other thing. And have you ever seen this shown up in your team where one leader says, hey, this is where we're at. Great. You leave the meeting, you go share it with the team, and one of the leaders shares it with the team, and you're sitting there like, no. That's not actually accurate. And then you have to, what seems like, it just, there's a few things. It seems like, whoa, you just kind of made them look like they didn't know what they were talking about, which may not be their fault because they were not on the same page, and that's on you. You also look like your leadership doesn't actually have their act together. So it's so, so important that your communication is not just what you say, it's what everybody understands, what everybody's on the same page about. Number 4, assumptions in when it comes to like customers and even marketing can cause you to sell a fantasy and not reality. So if you think that you know what your customers want more than your customers, you're in denial. You are making assumptions and it's going to cost you. Replace assumptions with proof. How do you do that? Well, in marketing, part of marketing is marketing research, which is figuring out what do customers actually want. Here's how important that is. How many of you have had team members that have gotten so fired up about this new trending thing? And then you go and you spend all this money, you offer this new trendy thing, whether it's a service or an entire product line, and it's a complete flop. Because as much as we love it, doesn't mean your customers are going to love it or find that it solves a problem for them. I'm going to get into this though. It's really cool. Part of market research, you have AI technology at your fingertips. So whether you use ChatGPT or Gemini, I want to share with you something I just looked up. This is market research. How do I know what my customers want? I said, in the last 30 days, what has been the number one online search as it relates to someone's hair and a problem they're trying to solve for their hair? Here is the exact answer. The number one trend in the last 30 days, this is the single most searched hair related problem people are looking for solutions to, is hair loss, specifically searches tied to hair shedding and hair growth solutions. This is among the fastest growing search terms in the hair category. How interesting. And that breaks it down with like specifically hair shedding and hair growth sprays are searched a lot. That's spiked as a top trending search interest. Wow. That alone was just something I could do independently. I can share this with the team. They can all read it. We can debrief about it, talk through it. What could we do to help solve this, market it? This is clearly a thing. You can narrow this down. Is there a way to find out in just your area what's being searched? Yes, there is. So hopefully that spurs some ideas for you. The light bulbs might be going off on things that you want to look into for your own area and your business, your type of business. So you don't know what your customers want necessarily. There's market research. There's also feedback forms, like having them fill out a little survey, or what I like to call sell it before you buy it or sell it before you build it. So let's say you want to offer something new and it's a very expensive thing. So you say, look, we're going to pre-sell a series of Brazilian blowouts, or we want to invest in a head spa. Let's pre-sell annual packages to get monthly scalp facials. That'll help fund going to buy it, but it also kind of gives you an idea is like, are people actually going to want this? Are they going to actually pay for it? So you run these little small tests, whether it be an offer, one specific message, one specific group you're trying to get in front of, one survey, whatever that is, but you're trying to validate behavior. Are you going to increase clicks, bookings, replies, retention, sales? Like all of that is important to see before you go do this big, big project that may be a total flop. So don't assume you know what your customers will actually say yes to at the end of the day. Find out what they want and then provide it for them. It's really that simple. The market doesn't reward confidence. It rewards accuracy. So if you want to accurately market and sell to your customer base, you got to find out what do they want. Don't assume. And number 5, build an assumption to accuracy operating system. Well, what does that mean? What's an assumption audit per se? And here's just the number one question. What are we assuming about the customer or the timeline? What are we assuming maybe about the budget or the team's capacity to serve this new thing? What is our definition of success? So asking yourself great questions as a baseline. Every time you go to make a decision, what are going to be the questions that you ask yourself? Here's some critical risk questions. Will the customer buy this? Can they figure it out? Will they know how to use the thing they buy? Can we provide the thing that they want to buy? Do we have to build something for them to buy? Does the solution work for our business? Can our business even do it? Like, let's say it's hair extensions. Oftentimes there's certification processes. Oftentimes it costs a lot more than you think it's going to. It's not just taking the class. Now you're getting mannequin heads, you're sourcing models, you're coloring the hair, you're providing, there's all sorts of additional costs. Have you ever done a salon build out? Raise your hand. If you've ever built out a space or maybe even a home, you have your budget and then you have what it actually costs. I don't think I've met very many people who say, and this project came in under budget. That does not typically happen. There's all these unforeseen things and you have to build it in and not make assumptions. So you're kind of building in that same protection when you go to make decisions as a group. You don't want to assume. You're going to ask yourself a series of questions to try to be as proactive as possible. Can you prove it quickly? What would make this totally false? So when you're thinking about the head spa, this has been so popular and talked about a lot lately. How quickly could you prove if your market is going to jump on this, if there's a need for it? So you do a SWOT analysis. Do any of our competitors offer this? Is this is hair loss or hair scalp or all that? Does it kind of coincide with what we offer already? Are we known as a specialty salon, let's say, for very curly hair? Well, if you have very high texture curly hair, you tend not to wash your hair as often or cleanse the scalp as often. So this could be great alignment potentially. Well, are they going to buy it? How much will this cost? When do we make our money back on this investment? Who's on board? Who's excited? What kind of training do we need? So it really takes some figuring it out, but also how quickly can we figure this out in the most, ethical way possible, like the most effective way possible. How quickly can we figure this out? And what would make this a no? Because when you have the heart of an owner, you're like, I want to make everybody's dream come true. I want to say yes to everything. That would be awesome. We should be, you can't be the best at every single thing. If you're going to be the best at 3 to 5 things, what are those going to be? How quickly can that new project or idea be identified as this can be a success for us? Here's how we know. Or no, this is not the right fit for us at this time. Same when you're vetting new hires or somebody who's newly joined the team. This is where your standards, your code of conduct or culture code, all of those things come into play. Knowing what you're looking for, being on the same page with all the leaders involved. It's not just you're assuming people aren't really clicking with this new hire. Or opposite, it's usually the opposite. Owners are usually like, oh, I assume everybody's getting along because I feel like you all are nice. But then they're like, no, you're not seeing what's really happening. And they fill you in. So this really applies to every area of the business. And making assumptions is dangerous. It'll cost you. It'll cost you money, time, resources, and relationships. 2 in 5 projects never meet their original goal or business intent. So it is imperative that you are an effective communicator. You're asking great questions, never assuming, and ensuring that everybody's on the same page. And by the way, how do you do that? Hey, everybody kind of share their takeaways. I want to make sure we're on the same page. How would you say what we just talked about? How would you bring up what we just talked about? Awesome. You really want to hear from everybody else, not putting words in their mouth. Remember, people don't think just like you do. And you're not going to think just like they do. That's the fun of collaboration. They're going to bring things up that you needed them to bring up because they're looking at this through a different lens than you are. So it can be really fun to shift how we communicate, never make assumptions because it'll cost you. It's dangerous, but you get the point. And now you are equipped with a few tactics to apply to your business, your leadership team, and your communications to improve the completion of those business goals that are successful. I hope you found that this was a valuable conversation today. If you did, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening so that more people like you will discover Beyond the Technique, where we are here to change the way that you are supported in your business. Until next time, have an awesome day and stay strong.
Did you know over 60% of first-time clients do not return for a second visit? That is so painful, but it doesn't have to be that way. That's where Maya comes in. Maya is the ultimate marketing software for the beauty and wellness industry. We have a proprietary funnel utilizing special algorithms to help connect the right consumers with the right providers at your business. This means that Maya helps you get higher spending clients you love to work with who stay the long haul. If you want to increase your revenue, increase your client count, increase your average ticket, and increase your new client retention, then you need Maya. Go to joinmaya.com to set up your own personal virtual tour and see why over 500,000 consumers have trusted Maya and the businesses we work with to find their perfect beauty and wellness pro. We promise you will love Maya.